The appearance of the wheels and their work was like unto the color of beryl, and they four had one likeness, and their appearance and their work was as it were a wheel in the middle of a wheel. A wheel in the middle of a wheel. America's favorite Vulcan, Leonard Nimoy, for years had invited his audience to delve into unexplained mysteries, from the monster at Loch Ness and ghostly apparitions to Sasquatch or Bigfoot and extraterrestrial life. And with even a paranormal society in Northern Virginia and a suburban community bordering the county of Arlington, Virginia, the home of the most government scientists and highly educated community, ranked 14th for holders of graduate degrees, it may not be surprising to discover that not only about 35% identify with any religious denomination at all in Arlington, Virginia. Hello, my name is Major Mike Webb, and at least indirectly, as a retired member of the intelligence community, both the President and the United States Supreme Court have tasked me to report on a fascinating phenomenon, which, with as many as 3 in 10 Americans by December identifying as nuns not affiliated with any faith denomination, up 6 points since the pre-pandemic estimate that had already found their numbers exceeding those affiliated with the Roman Catholic Church, just like he had tasked the intelligence community to look into the origins of a novel coronavirus, a question still without answers. While the Defense Department was delving into refining and clarifying knowledge on potential visitors from space, for the next few moments, I will be addressing the topic of what the government does not want you to know about the existence of God in an unclassified format, which we might, just for the Lenten season, describe as Jesus Christ, extraterrestrial, God, unclassified. In June, with much anticipation from the general American public regarding the release of an unclassified report on unidentified flying objects, UFOs, or the new in vogue term, unexplained aerial phenomenon. According to Forbes magazine, only a few Americans had said they have personally seen a UFO. And more Americans believe UFOs exist. However, a large number believe the government is withholding information or covering up what is known about them. And belief in the idea that there is alien life somewhere in the universe appears to be growing. Consider that in 1973, around the time of the movie release of The Exorcist with Linda Blair, only around 47% of Americans held a sincere belief that UFOs were real, climbing to 57% in 1990, around the time of the first Gulf War. And in 2019, the year just before the pandemic, according to Gallup polls, 56% said they were real, while 39% said imaginary. Only 5% had no opinion at all. So if UFOs were a referendum on the ballot, we could say that a majority of American adults would validate their existence. But just a belief in UFOs is not an exact science and could mean practically anything. So Statista got a little more specific, and in July of last year, their surveys found that over 28% of respondents said they believe that extraterrestrial life exists and that they visit our planet. And so maybe we have some men in black that are running around chasing these people. And some people do believe that. But this compares with back in 2013, when Huffington Post reported that a quarter of Americans think that alien visitors have come to Earth. And 50% of Americans think that there is some form of life on other planets, while 17% think that there is not. Only 17%. Another 33% said they just weren't sure. So only about a quarter of Americans have some consistent belief that we've had close encounters of some kind. First, third, second, and third. But how about life elsewhere that has yet to come and make its way here? Close encounters of the third kind ain't out yet. Well, By 2005, according to Space magazine, while most depictions of extraterrestrials are confined to science fiction, that which we know, nearly 2/3 of Americans believe that some form of alien life exists. Some form exists somewhere in the universe. So live long and prosper, and perhaps one day you shall meet God, is the belief. But in June 2020, the Scientific American, very reputable magazine, which later went on unprecedentedly to endorse Joe Biden for president, introduced a new twist to the extraterrestrial debate and reported on findings on new exciting research that relied upon an 18th century statistician who also, hold on to your hats, also happened to be a minister, promising pretty broad appeal from two traditionally opposed political camps: science and religion, creation, evolution, abortion, pro-choice. Hopping in their time-traveling DeLorean, they took readers back to the end of 1980, when the 12th episode of the PBS science television series Cosmos with Carl Sagan had been aired, when he had introduced Frank Drake's eponymous equation and had used it to construct a mathematical model to calculate the potential number of advanced civilizations in the Milky Way that could possibly, not necessarily plausibly, but possibly, contact us using the extraterrestrial equivalent of our modern radio communications technology. Note that they could, but even back in July, we had confirmation that to date, although we've been listening for years, over 50 years, nobody is calling back. And he came up with an estimate or educated guess that ranged from a pitiful few to millions, pessimistically stating if civilizations do not always destroy themselves shortly after discovering radio astronomy, then the sky may be softly humming with messages from the stars, even if we can't hear them. So, although a favorite astrophysicist for many, not even Carl Sagan, believed there existed billions and billions of Vulcans looking for Earth creatures with whom to share warp drive technology. Carl Sagan. And the American scientist provided an update on the progress of science in this intriguing topic for many, even if as diversion from the confusion, fear, and despair arising during a global public health crisis that to date has killed over 6 million people worldwide, 1 million in the United States alone with the most advanced science, and in which even leaders in the faith communities had volunteered to declare themselves non-essential, if only to save their own lives, if not their churches, from what they perceived as potential civil liability, lacking faith that their God might even see them through that. A very similar concern expressed by educators who knew the science, or said they knew the science, before schools began slowly to reopen and emerge from virtual learning classroom environments springing up as the government response. And the American scientists reported, in recent years, some skeptical astronomers have tried to put more empirical heft behind such pronouncements using sophisticated forms of analysis called Bayesian statistics. They have focused on two great unknowns. The odds of life arising on Earth-like planets from abiotic conditions, a process called abiogenesis. And from there, the odds of intelligence emerging. Even with such estimates in hand, astronomers disagree about what they mean for life elsewhere in the cosmos. That lack of consensus is because even the best Bayesian analysis can only do so much when hard evidence of extraterrestrial life and intelligence is thin on the ground. Your assumptions are only as good as you can make them approximate the truth. Again, there are only statistics. These are only statistical projections to determine the likelihood, possibility of life existing elsewhere in the universe, which you could just as easily use to guess whether or not there is a heaven and a God, but which we generally don't. Or essentially a mathematical formulation to enforce a belief to, as the judge in Just a Few Good Men had described as proof of a flight that did not exist. Testing our faith in the empirical basis of what we like to describe as science, the thing for which most Americans said they had cast their vote in the pandemic election of 2020. And for those walking by faith in science on a journey into the cosmos, like many did. Walking on faith in science in a global pandemic. Boldly going where no man has gone before, the Scientific American reported in 2012, Ed Turner and his colleague David Spiegel, then at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, New Jersey, premier university, I believe, were the first to rigorously apply Bayesian analysis to abiogenesis. In their approach, life on Earth-like planet around a sun-like star does not emerge until some minimum number of years. It's going to take some time for life to come into existence. It's not just going to have some deific presence drop it down. T-Men. This is the scientific connotation. After the world's formation, T-Men. If life does not arise before some maximum time, T-Max, then as its star ages and eventually dies, conditions on the planet become too hostile for abiogenesis to ever occur. Between T-Men and T-Max, Turner and Spiegel's intent was to calculate the probability of abiogenesis, like we are still trying to do with the zoonotic evolution of a novel coronavirus. One early critic, David Kibbing, an astronomer from Columbia University, another Ivy League school, stated, "I don't see any evidence that that's a safe bet to be making, especially in the absence of a credible data point upon which to base a reasonable assumption." And that warning about assumptions, an important criterion for empirical analysis. Yet he nonetheless does grant credit where credit is due, acknowledging that the works of Turner and Spiegel, Ivy League Princeton men, were the first really serious Bayesian attack on this problem. Other things to be doing in the pandemic, like trying to prevent the deaths of 6 million lives, but they were looking at the stars to determine whether or not life exists someplace else with alien technology, as is according to Kipping. And he says, "I think what was appealing is that they broke this default, naive interpretation of the early emergence of life." And after the much-awaited release of the Defense Department report, and many were waiting for that report, some even in Bible study groups, the Pew Research Center conducted a survey of Americans, most of whom, more likely than not, did not even read the tiny 9-page report. About 3 times smaller than the original report on the outbreak in China by the WHO in February 2020. And if most relied upon less than 3 minutes of what they may have read, broadcasted, or heard in an echo chamber consistent with their personal ideology and political views. And what they found was that about 2/3 of Americans, 65%, say their best guess, not quite confident, but this is their best guess, is that intelligent life exists on other planets. Why not? The universe is infinite and some say expanding. And there has to be life out there. But again, this is only 2/3 of us. Some 51% of Americans agree that observations of these aerial phenomena by the Defense Department personnel at least probably provide proof of life on other planets. We have professionals engaged in defense. They have to know something. While up to 81%, however, deny, despite Defense Department interest in this topic, so much as to produced a report last year. They deny that these aerial phenomena present a credible threat to national security, reinforcing the notion that the government knows something and they're just keeping it from us. And at that time, surveys conducted by AllGov found that most, 56% of Americans, believed that if the government had evidence of UFOs, this information would be hidden from the public. Why? We don't know. And about 1 in 5, 22%, believe the government would share this evidence with the public. So we have some people that believe that if the government has this information, they would give it to you, and you would know whether or not you'll be able to have dinner with Spock or E.T. or whatever. Chewie. This is the state of paranormal America. Americans who accept on faith, over 2/3, that something is up there. Not God, but some alien or mothership. And they're trying to contact us. And over half who believe, and somehow they don't know how to make a telephone call to us that we would, okay. And over half who believe that the government is hiding information. Somehow our government is more powerful than the UFOs, and they're blocking this information from the aliens. Perfectly plausible to some. Nonetheless, most of whom have not even read the official government reports and describe themselves as following the science. And now with this foundation, let us use this segue to transition to the focus of my limited inquiry as a retired member of the intelligence community who had held a top clearance while serving as the operations officer for all U.S. Army strategic counterintelligence in the continental United States, but also as a preacher's kid who had actually been groomed to succeed his father in ministry. Took some courses in religion and some seminary courses. Let's prepare to go on an adventure, boldly explore where no man has gone before. The Unclassified report on what the government knows about God and does not want you to know. Keeping it from you. Kind of like the Ark in Raiders of the Lost Ark. As reported, in December, the latest Pew Research Center survey of the religious composition of the United States finds the religiously unaffiliated share of the public is 6 percentage points higher than it was 5 years ago and 10 points higher than a decade ago. Remember, we experienced a 12-point decline over the last decade, as was reported by Pew in September of 2019. Christians continue to make up a majority of the U.S. populace, but their share of the adult population is 12 points lower in 2021 than it was in 2011. In addition, the share of U.S. adults who say they pray on a daily basis has been trending downward, as the share who say religion is very important in their lives. Note here that even the American Bible Society has found that religion, one of the hallmarks of religion, Bible reading, tends to be centered around those times when we get together and are kind of forced to read the Bible in Bible study in church. And so we found Bible reading, scripture reading, at its lowest point in history, despite reports that 24% of atheists were praying at the beginning of the pandemic. But we don't know what they were praying for. Currently, about 3 in 10 U.S. adults, according to Pew, 29% are religious nuns. 29%. People who describe themselves as atheists, agnostic, or nothing in particular when asked about their religious identity. Self-identified Christians of all varieties, including Protestants, Catholics, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or Mormons, and Orthodox Christians make up 63% of the adult population. 63%. Christians now outnumber religious nuns by a ratio of a little more than 2 to 1, but as a single denomination, nuns run away with the lead. In 2007, when the center began asking its current question about religious identity, Christians outnumbered nuns by almost 5 to 1. This is important preliminary information because the analysis that I am prepared to present may find some begin to experience the classic stages of what psychologists describe as grief, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and eventually acceptance. And according to reports, as many as 38% of ministers in pandemic totally freaked out and actually thought about leaving their profession. Statistically, 95% of those who complete seminary leave the profession of ministry in just the first 5 years. And these are just the facts. And it is often stated that change or revolution, to use the paradigmatic language of the science community, is often painful, but inevitable, while growth in natural selection of evolution is always optional. And Dr. Michelle Walensky, reminding us that this virus isn't stupid, has indeed reminded us repeatedly that human behavior has not served us, rational persons, well. So let's pause here and continue in our next video regarding extraterrestrial Jesus, God Unclassified, with the post-pandemic topic, Paradise Lost, who woke up surprised. This briefing is unclassified. As you were, my name is Major Mike Webb, and by God, I am running for U.S. Congress. This year, resolved to do the right thing, and we will make America great again. On it. Carry on. This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb.
Thunk, I could have had a vaccine.